Leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan meet in Abu Dhabi to discuss the next steps in finalizing their peace agreement. Russia pounds Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, with another major missile and drone attack overnight into Thursday, killing at least 2 people.
US President Donald Trump said that he would impose 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, citing a witch hunt trial against former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev are meeting this Thursday in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, to discuss next steps in finalizing the peace agreement their offices have confirmed. This is the first formal bilateral meeting of the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan since they agreed on the draft text of a peace deal following almost 4 decades of conflict.
This is particularly important because it's a bilateral summit. With Russia overwhelmed by its failed invasion of Ukraine, this is very much at the exclusion of Russia.
In September 2023, Azerbaijan reclaimed full control of the Karabakh region after a lightning military campaign, following decades-long conflict with Armenia in which Russia was a central actor.
Azerbaijan's launch of a war in 2020 and its military seizure of Nagorno-Karabakh has exposed the emptiness of a security reliance on Russia. But I would also say Armenia and Azerbaijan, ironically, share a same pursuit, a policy to defy Moscow, pushing back and pushing out Russia from the South Caucasus. A significant lesson learned from the Ukrainian battlefield is the surprising weakness and incompetence of the Russian armed forces. That's an important lesson for all of the countries in the near abroad, Russia's neighbors.
Analysts believe Moscow losing its influence in the region will leave a dangerous vacuum of power which Turkey is seeking to regain. At least 2 people were killed on Thursday and 16 others injured after Russia attacked Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, with another mass missile and drone attack. According to Ukrainian officials, the overnight attack reportedly caused fires across the city and came a day after the heaviest aerial attack of the 3-year war so far. Rescue workers worked on Thursday at a residential district in Kyiv after falling debris caused a fire on the top floor of an apartment building, according to Ukrainian officials. Russia had fired more than 700 attack and decoy drones at Ukraine, topping previous nightly barrages for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Many residents in the Ukrainian capital sought refuge in underground metro stations. The attack comes as the Trump administration resumed sending some weapons to Ukraine. The Pentagon had previously directed that weapons shipments be paused. Russia's military has not commented on the reported latest attack.
A lot of hate,
US President Donald Trump said that he would impose 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, citing a witch hunt trial against former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is accused of trying to overturn his 2022 election defeat. He faces charges including involvement in an armed criminal organization and attempting to undermine Brazil's democratic order. In a letter addressed to current President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, Trump said the trial shouldn't be happening and called for it to end immediately. Lula responded that the 50% tariffs would trigger Brazil's economic reciprocity law, potentially suspending trade, investment and intellectual property agreements with the US. Lula also noted that the US has maintained a trade surplus of more than $410 billion with Brazil over the past 15 years. Bolsonaro has not commented on Trump's announcement, but he has previously said he is the victim of political persecution.
The recent surge in illegal migration to the island of Crete has led the Greek government to take stricter measures to tackle the problem. On Wednesday, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis announced after a meeting with Minister of Migration Policy Thanos Plevris a series of emergency measures to deal with the crisis. The Greek government will temporarily suspend the processing of asylum applications for migrants arriving from Africa, initially for 3 months.
Όσοι μετανάστες λοιπόν εισέρχονται παράνομα στην χώρα θα συλλαμβάνονται και θα κρατούνται.
The second decision is to establish 1 or possibly 2 permanent closed detention centers for migrants on the island of Crete. Mitsotakis also said the government's discussions with Libya are ongoing. He also warned that the Greek armed forces are willing to cooperate with Libyan authorities in order to prevent boats from leaving from Libya.
Η ελληνική κυβέρνηση στέλνει ένα μήνυμα αποφασιστικότητας ότι η δίωδος προς την Ελλάδα κλείνει και το στέλνει προς όλους τους διακινητές και προς όλους τους δυνητικούς πελάτες τους ότι τα χρήματα τα οποία δαπανούν ενδεχομένως να είναι παντελώς χαμένα, διότι πια θα είναι πολύ πιο δύσκολο από ό,τι ήταν μέχρι σήμερα να μπορεί κανείς να φτάσει στην Ελλάδα δια της θαλασσίας οδού.
The Greek premier's remarks were made after more than 2,000 migrants landed on Crete since the weekend. The Mediterranean country has seen a spike in illegal migration recently, with more than 60,000 believed to have arrived last year, a 25% increase from 2023 figures. French authorities raided the headquarters of the far-right National Rally Party on Wednesday as part of a probe into alleged violations of campaign finance laws. The Paris prosecutor's office said the investigation is examining whether the party used illegal loans to finance its campaigns between 2020 and 2024. The investigation concerns possible acts of money laundering and the use of forged documents during their 2022 presidential and 2024 European election races. The National Rally's president Jordan Bardella called the action a new harassment campaign. He said armed forces stormed the party building on Wednesday morning and seized emails, documents, and accounting data. The party has surged in popularity in recent years, becoming France's largest single parliamentary party. The raid comes about 3 months after the party's co-founder and de facto leader, Marine Le Pen, and other officials were convicted of embezzling EU funds.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz received NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte in Berlin on Wednesday as Germany celebrates its 70th anniversary of joining the alliance. Both Merz and Rutte underlined their commitment to Ukraine and said that the priority is to bring about a ceasefire with Russia as soon as possible. The NATO Secretary-General said that Europe is not producing enough military supplies and welcomed the increase in defence spending the Allies agreed to a couple of weeks ago in The Hague. Germany is expected to take a leading role within the alliance. As tensions between France and Germany mount over fighter jets, Merz said discussions are ongoing but highlighted that the project could be a good collaboration between France, Spain and Germany if they can reach an agreement. Rutte also spoke about China's ambitions and said World War III could occur within the next 3 to 7 years, with Russia being able to launch a full-scale attack against NATO territory to keep Europe busy whilst China attacks Taiwan. As global conflicts continue to heat up, NATO has been making big promises in terms of military and defence expansion. But can it deliver? Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
The European Parliament approved one of the toughest documents in the history of its enlargement. It's the progress report on Georgia's accession process to the bloc. With 490 votes in favour and 147 against, MEPs condemned what they call the backsliding of the rule of law and the growing Russian influence on the ruling party Georgian Dream. Euronews spoke to one of the main drafters of the report.
We see rigged elections last year in the parliamentary elections, and since then we've seen ever more brutal clampdown and crackdowns on peaceful protesters. So what this report clearly shows is that the Georgian Dream government seems to be playing out the Russian playbook of disinformation, manipulation and intimidation, and that is really not going towards the membership of the European Union.
The Parliament has repeatedly denounced what they call electoral fraud in last October's legislative elections against the opposition party, composed of pro-European forces. The EU and Council of Europe have repeatedly condemned the arrest of dozens, including members of the Georgian opposition, journalists and activists in recent months.
A return to the EU path could only be considered if the Georgian authorities take credible steps to reverse democratic backsliding, meaning stopping the violence against citizens, releasing all those unjustly detained, suspending repressive laws and engaging in a meaningful dialogue with civil society.
Nevertheless, the Georgian government claims its full commitment to the EU accession process, which was reiterated to Euronews last May.
There are many speculations about our accession path, but there is no real shift in our policy. We have the only policy, which is the integration agenda. That's formally adopted by the government.
Growing concerns and disagreements between the EU and the Georgian government prompted the two sides to freeze the enlargement process, only a few months after Georgia received candidate status for EU membership.